I'm Nadia Swart for BizNews, and I'm here with BizNews founder Alec Hogg, just to look at 2021 in review. So let's start with BizNews. What do you think have been the most exciting developments at BizNews this year?
Sure, Nadia. I think the conference, we have had two BizNews investment conferences. The first one was in March and the second one was in September. And it's a fantastic way of bringing the BizNews community together. So, and it's getting bigger and bigger. We have our next one in March. We already have 40% more bookings than we were allowed to take at the September conference. So that's good news. So it's growing really well, and been mostly the fact that the community comes together and really enjoys it. The other thing happened right at the end of the year where we moved into our new premises, our new HQ here in Johannesburg. We're going to miss Stuart, our general manager, who's now down in Cape Town. So he'll be scouting around for premises for the Cape Town team. But I guess we also have made 3 new appointments for the new year. So we're looking forward to expanding our team a little more. So that's on that side. When you think generally the site has been better accepted, premium is the number of premium members is up about 25% on the year just through organic growth. Our podcasts have done well. Maybe the big area for us has been our YouTube videos, which you've been looking after, which have really just gone crazy. I think a couple of months ago, we had 1.5 million downloads in a month. Yeah. That's just extraordinary. So, yeah, it's been a year of growth and fun, most of all.
It has been fun.
We love what we do, and we when you're having fun and you're doing well at it, you enjoy it, and it's you get into that virtuous circle or cycle. And I feel like our flywheel is accelerating. So, yeah, long may it continue.
And with these new additions to the team and the conference in March, what can the community expect from BizNews next year?
I think upping our game. We are great believers that we put our community members at the center of our universe. So we're not here to make ourselves look good or to follow any vested interest or support any vested interest. We're here to serve our community. So, and it's very simple that, it gives you a wonderful North Star to work from, because if you're relying on advertisers, then sometimes there's an inclination not to offend those advertisers. From BizNews' perspective, our business model, and we are profitable, and we continue to be. We have to be profitable to be sustainable. But as we make profits, we reinvest in new people, in expanding the team. But to be able to get to the point that we're at now has been because of our community. Our community tells us what they like. We serve. We give them what they enjoy. Another highlight I forgot was on BizNews Premium. In the past year, we have become the Southern African partner for the Financial Times of London as well. Yeah. So we've got the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times of London now, who are our partners. You couldn't ask for two better titles, more respected titles in the world than those two. So that's we do things like that. It's expensive. It's very costly to bring on this incredible content, but that's because we reinvest and we put our community members at the center, and we see the tribe growing. I loved what Holger Meyer, who was at our conference, said. He said, he explained to me. He said, Sean Thompson, the famous South African world champion surfer who started a couple of huge surfing clothing brands and then sold them off, was asked in an interview recently what he would do if he were to go back into business. And he said he wouldn't start a business. He'd start a tribe. And I think we've got at BizNews, it's not a community, it's a tribe. It
definitely is.
And that delights me because you keep engaging with members of the tribe, and they know that they are more important than anybody else. And as long as you have that, Jeff Bezos has shown it at Amazon. Put your customer or your consumer or your tribe member at the center of what you do, and you really will. You will be not just sustainable, but you continue to grow. And without growth, there's no point in being business.
So, on that note, let's look at the BizNews share portfolio. How's it performed in 2021?
It's done incredibly well. It was started in 2014 as a partnership with Standard Bank, with Standard Bank Web Trader. At the time, they were looking to get their Web Trader is a very unique product where it opens up the international investing markets to the clients there. So they have pretty much every single stock market in the world, from the US, where most of the action happens, but through to Australia, the UK, of course, Canada, wherever you want to invest money, you can do it through WebTrader. And the idea back in 2014, when they launched it, was how are we going to get South Africans to start seeing that there's a big world outside of the JSE, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And back then, it was almost it was a leap of faith that we took. We cancelled our data fee that we paid the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which was actually ridiculous. You were paying about 20,000 Rand a month just so that we could show the shopping list of the JSE to our community. And instead, we focused our attention on the world, where 99.5% of investable assets actually reside. But back then, there wasn't really that much knowledge about it. So together, every month since then, we've had a webinar and we've engaged. And the idea was quite simple. We felt that the South African Rand would be a weak currency. So if you just invested offshore and you did nothing, you just had your money in dollars, you are likely to appreciate. Your portfolio is likely to appreciate. So that was the starting point. And then there was an attempt to outperform the US dollar return. So how you did that was you invested in equities. And then you started off very conservatively. We had half the portfolio in the S&P 500 index and Berkshire Hathaway. So those two. Another few shares, wild cards, we called them. 8 of those where we had 5% in each. And that's the way it started. Now, we were very lucky in that one of the first stocks to be added to, it was 5 stocks with 8% each. One of the first wild cards was Amazon, which we bought into the portfolio at $327, and it's now $3,500. So you don't have to be too clever to when you've got a stock like that in your portfolio. Anyway, over the 7-year period, we've primarily invested and held, but sometimes we've sold when the fundamentals in a business changed. The big mistake was selling Tesla at $300. The good idea was to sell Metro Bank at £30, and it went down. Tesla's, of course, rocketed from $300, and it's had a share split, whereas the Metro Bank went from £30 down to under £1. So we did the right thing by selling there. And there have been various other degrees of success. But primarily when the whole intention was to follow most of Warren Buffett's principles, invest in things you know, and that's why we are very much going for exponential companies. And in the past year, that portfolio is up 24%, which is pretty good because if you consider that the portfolio has started from a base of $200,000, which at the time was 2.2 million Rand. And it's now worth about $750,000 after 7 years, which is 12 million Rand.
That's incredible.
Million Rand. So, no, it's extraordinary, but it is because of a combination of the Rand, which will weaken, but then also our portfolio. So clearly the Rand weakened to help with that 12.5 million Rand, but a big part of it obviously was going from $200,000 to $750,000. And Nadia, what this shows you is that if you invest and you manage to get a return, our return there in US dollars is 21% a year compound.
Incredible.
it quickly, if you compound at levels of 20%, it becomes huge. And so what we did towards the end of the year, because a lot of people most people don't have 12.5 million rand to put into a share portfolio. So we went back to basics. We're going to continue with the web trader portfolio, as we're calling it. And we started a new partnership with Shift at $10,000. So brand new. It's up and started in December. I'm usually very, very bad in the early stages where the stocks I tend to pick them too early. They tend to go down and then after a little while go up. So I would suggest anybody who's following the Shift portfolio, well, that started well. They just need to be patient because this is a 5 to 7 year game or project. And in that time, I think we can all be pretty confident that the rand will weaken. And our job then on this portfolio is to guide. It's a model portfolio. We're not giving you, not saying give me your money and I'll invest it. It's a model portfolio. But every month for premium members, they can come onto a webinar, ask the questions. I'll explain what's happened to the companies. That's my job, is to keep an eye on what's going on with the companies. And so that if anything funny goes on, we can at least inform, and then they can sell. Those people who hold that particular share can either sell because we're selling, or they can decide no to hold on. But it just opens up a whole new world. So that portfolio has been a big part of our success, I think, is that our tribe loves it because they've got someone to guide them or participate with them in their offshore investing, which is a pretty scary place if you've never done it before.
And now these people that have been, following the original share portfolio, maybe like a year or two too late, and as you said, not a lot of people have that money to invest, but now they get to enter like on the ground floor with this new one.
Exactly, and that was really the idea. So if you've got $10,000, you can replicate the portfolio entirely. If you've got $20,000, well, you can buy twice as much, or $30,000 3 times as much, and so on.
Amazing.
So that's the what I did suggest to people. If they've got $30,000, then buy the first $10,000 now. When we in December, when we purchased the shares, but the second $1,000, do it in a month's time. And then the third in another month's time. So you're staggering your purchases, which then reduces your exposure to the currency risk and, of course, to the share price risk as well. So that's kind of, we did that in the other portfolio right from the beginning, where we said that everything we buy over 3 months, excepting there was one exception when COVID hit in March 2020.
Yeah, it feels like way longer ago.
Yeah, we actually sold some of the stodgy stocks, if you like, the S&P 500, and invested here in South Africa in Sasol at 28 Rand, Discovery at 60 Rand, and those were the two big ones. And of course, Sasol went up to the 10-bagger almost. It went up to 145 Rand, where we sold out within 3 months. Discovery doubled in price. So it's been that was a nice little booster, but that was unusual circumstance. And I've got a feeling that we're almost seeing something similar now in the second line exponential shares in America. So in this Shift portfolio, we've got Zoom, Spotify, those kind of second to you. They've all come down a long, long way because of concerns about inflation. Uber is another one there. But we do feel that when the inflation concerns ameliorate because of the end of the pandemic, which has to end at some time. Here in South Africa, it looks like Omicron or Omicron is telling us it's coming to an end. So that would then give those stocks in particular a big lift. So we might have just got real lucky with our timing again.
Oh, that would be amazing. So this is a loaded question. I'm sure that there's more than one. So maybe your the three global or local companies that stood out for you this year.
That have achieved great things.
Yes,
it
doesn't not necessarily purely financial, but maybe just because it's been such a difficult year for business in general with all the restrictions, and so taking that into account, what are your?
I think that companies that stood out. you pretty much have to go offshore. There aren't too many South African businesses that have had a good year. Naspers has had a pretty awful year, and that's been our winner for many, many years because of their exposure to China and the crazy things that are going on there with the authoritarian state and them appointing a president for life and President Key. It's just become a really high risk area, and we've been telegraphing this for a while now. So it's unfortunate what's going on with Naspers. So you take the South African out of it. To me, the real winner this year was Apple, where the world started getting what Steve Jobs was putting in place, and he's been dead for 10 years now, but even 20 years ago, where his whole idea of Apple was to have an ecosystem. And the ecosystem is based on that you buy one part of Apple and then you'll get another part. But of course, it doesn't help you if you're going to have an iPhone and then a really crummy desktop and a poor iPad. You need to have all of your products to be absolute top quality. And Apple has done that. They've managed to not just produce these incredibly good products, which all talk to each other, but also they've shown that they're putting the consumer or their user at the center of their universe. And this was also reflected recently by Apple actually giving us, as Apple users or anyone who uses an Apple product, the ability to switch off the private tracking, almost like if you saw the Matrix, those horrible bots that were seeking out the ship in Matrix, or those horrible bots that get used by Facebook and Google that follow everything that we do. And Apple says, well, you can choose not to if you don't want them to.
Which is amazing, because
it's extraordinary,
yeah.
and it's starting to bring the whole story of privacy back into our lives. And so I would say Apple is definitely one. Netflix is another one. It's suddenly people are kind of getting the next Netflix idea. Reed Hastings has been a hero of mine for a while. He's now a hero to everyone in the world, it seems. Suddenly they're saying, hang on, this guy has really got something. And it's a wonderful model that we've learned a lot from at BizNews as well, with Netflix starting off as an aggregator. That's all they were. And they were using other people's content. And then as they've gone forward, they've started building their own content, much higher risk, much more expensive, but much more sustainable in the long term. And now they've taken it to a new level where they are creating content all around the world and using Korean content to be
Squid Game,
to exposing that to people all over the world. So you get South African created content, which hasn't really clicked. You haven't got a big one yet on a global basis, but it's that kind of a policy. And now they're moving to the next level, which is taking sport and turning the drama and the soap opera type attraction of sport into series on Netflix. It's starting off with a Formula One, which suddenly people who couldn't have cared about Formula One are now obsessed about it, given what Netflix has done. So Netflix, to me, would be the other biggie of this year. If there was a man of the year that went to Elon Musk, and good luck to him, it would be, to me, the companies of the year would be Apple and Netflix.
Amazing. So it has been a particularly tough year for South Africa, for the world in general, but I mean, with the civil unrest in July, like, we have had profoundly hard year. COVID-related restrictions, unemployment skyrocketing. Do you think that our country will learn the lessons that we need to, so that we will see some stability next year? Or do you think that the insanity might just continue?
Nadia, July was incredible. It was, in fact, both July and the COVID pandemic have given us profound lessons. In July, what happened there was, and in many countries elsewhere in the world, you wouldn't have seen the resilience of the middle class. In many countries elsewhere in the world, I think the middle class would have got in their cars and ducked. In South Africa, that didn't happen. The middle class stood. They were the people from all communities. It was not a question of race, but people in suburbia, the middle class homes, who have lived there, who've decided not to leave the country, who've decided this is where they live, and they're not going to get kicked out despite so much regulation and legislation that is targeting them. And the shop owners, particularly the Muslim shop owners, they were extraordinary. And I'm from KwaZulu-Natal, so I have a deep, deep network there. The way that the Muslim community stood up to the rabble, because that's all it was. It was people who were instigated by very, very dark, evil human beings who were on the other side of the fence. The way that the taxi drivers,
the unlikely alliances that were
aligned
made
themselves with the middle class
to stand together against a common enemy that week.
But taxi drivers are middle class, and I think this has always been a bit of a fallacy in South Africa, is that the if you like, the traditional middle class would look at the taxi drivers and shake their fists because of the way the guys drive. I think that's really unfair, because there's 16 people in the taxi, and it's like usually just me in my car. But to each their own. But the reality was, in the July riots, suddenly the center held. And that, I think, is a huge upside for South Africa as a whole, because you don't have this thing in the back of your mind that the poor people are going to just overwhelm the middle class, because there isn't a middle class. Well, the reality is there is a middle class, and it's sticking, and it will defend where the police and the army were non-existent in Pietermaritzburg. They were Pietermaritzburg, the whole of KZN. I have family in Pietermaritzburg. They just weren't anywhere to be seen. The beginning of that came when police were flown in from Uppington and Mpumalanga, etc., because the local police in KZN were absent. I think the head of SAPS in KZN went on leave during that time.
Yeah, paternity leave.
Just a convenient way of not being around. So I look at that and I say, we've always worried about this country sitting on a powder keg, and then what if? Well, the what if happened, and we came through it, and we came through it very strongly. So the middle class held, and that's always the start of a great society. And we saw that going forward into the elections, where the inconceivable happened in the local elections, where the ANC's vote fell below 50%, which was a vote in the mismanagement and the corruption by the ordinary people. So it's almost like the silent majority have stood up and spoken. And we see a similar thing that's happened with COVID. COVID has shown everybody in South Africa that we're all in the same boat, that in fact a lot of the people who were there to support the people who got sick, and a lot of people sick, and a lot of people died. We've had tragedies in our family, and I think there hasn't been a family in South Africa that hasn't had that. But when you interact with our healthcare workers, from the nurses to obviously the doctors and the intensivists, etc., you realize that they're world class, that they're as good as anybody anywhere in the world. And that has certainly shown us that we have got this pocket of excellence that exists in our country, that if given the due respect, which I think in future it always will be with healthcare, will give us another base from which to build, as did, of course, the antics or the continued performances by the Springboks, which you cannot underestimate as well. When our sports teams are achieving on the international stage, it does have a reflection on us as a nation. And often I feel that all we need in South Africa is a little more confidence. The confidence to vote the ANC out of power, the confidence to go and vote for someone like Herman Mashaba with his Action SA, the confidence to invest in the country, put a little bit deeper, put your roots down. The confidence of those people in KwaZulu-Natal who went onto the barriers at night to defend their property, to defend their homes, because they were confident that those homes were worth defending. So it's been an incredible year, and one day historians are going to look back on this and perhaps say this was the turning point.
So, I mean, the BizNews team members, we're lucky to work with such an incredible team. And one of the things that I really enjoy under your leadership is the quotes that you sometimes use to mentor us. One that stands out for me is Socrates. The beginning of wisdom is to admit that you know nothing. Of all the, these most profound quotes, which one do you think sums up your feel of 2021? Something that we should perhaps, go into 2022 with.
This too shall pass. It's a quote that came from...
it's from the Bible, isn't it?
The Shah. It's actually from the Middle East. It is from the Middle East, but the reference that I have been given on it is it's a story, I guess, as most things are stories. How the Shah, or the king of Persia many years ago, was going through a very rough time, and he got all these wise men together to say he wants to put up billboards in those versions. In other words, he wants to paint on the walls some slogan, but it's got to be short, 4 words, and it must actually say everything that we need to say so that we can lift ourselves out of it. And the winner was "This too shall pass." And I often think about that because we get caught up, especially because of the tyranny of geography here in South Africa. We're so far away from so much of what's happening in the world, and we underrate ourselves, because when we go to London or New York, we see these massive, or China, see these massive skyscrapers, all these people, all new cars, such incredible wealth, and we say, but who are we to compete with these guys? Well, if we bear that in mind, if we bear that in mind, that we have been through a rough time, we are a young democracy, and that, in fact, a South African boy is today the wealthiest man in the world because he's the greatest entrepreneur in the world, in Elon Musk, then we can know that, yes, we've been through a tough time, but this too shall pass. So I'd love to see billboards with that all over the place, especially after 2021, because 2022 is, well, we don't know the future. Only the big boss knows that. But it does look to me as though 2022 will be a much better year. We are a resilient nation. We've come through this incredible test. We've come through, think about it, we had Zuma as a president. We had the Guptas who were running the country and plundering here. We've now had, on top of that, COVID-19, which initially was very poorly managed in South Africa, but in the latter stages, brilliantly managed compared with most people, most countries around the world. And we going through this has just made us stronger. And I do believe that it will show us to good effect in the future, whether that's 2022, I suppose is anybody's guess.
And then, well, just one final question. Now that people have some time to get some reading done, what book would you recommend for people's holiday reading?
Sure. That's my favorite. As you know, Jeanette and I think that the best gift you can give to somebody at Christmas time is a book. But it must be a carefully selected book for that person in particular.
That's true.
I'm reading one at the moment called Doom by Neil Ferguson, who's one of the great economists. He's Scottish.
Scottish.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I have watched him. He's
he's
quite a guy.
And it's very important that because his name is spelled Niall, which in Ireland you call Niall, but in Scotland you call Neil.
Oh, okay.
Pronounced Neil. Very good book, that one. I would say anybody who wants to improve their understanding of the world and themselves should read Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
He's got 2 unbelievable books. The first one is
12 Rules for Life. 12 Rules for Life.
12 Rules for Life. And then the second one is Order and Chaos. So those two books would be, if you want to invest in yourself and you want to start the new year in a better shape, then
go and
read those. No, Doom on the one hand is more of a historical book. It puts the pandemic into perspective, which is quite interesting because there have been 7 pandemics of this kind of COVID, and COVID's like down at the bottom of the 7. It certainly isn't up with the Black Death, where 30% of people died. Even Spanish flu as well was far worse. But it's up there. It's one of the 7. So it's a very serious thing. I would say to improve your own self is always the best investment, as Warren Buffett keeps told us famously. The best investment you can make is in yourself. So Jordan Peterson to me would be, and just read it, and don't care what anybody else says about Peterson. Just read the book, study it, take your pencil when you're reading it, and make your notes, and you'll see that here's a psychologist who just makes a lot of sense. He's like the modern day Scott Peck. And Scott Peck wrote a similar book called The Road Less Traveled.
One of my favorite hands-on books of all time. Brilliant book.
There we go. And Scott Peck was also a psychologist who'd done a lot of work. You know, Nadia, I love people who've done the work, who've actually experienced it themselves, and then share with us what they've actually experienced, rather than something they've read or some idea that they've had that they've read from someone else, and then they own that idea. It's much better when people have done it themselves. And I suppose to a degree, that's why I'm really pleased that we started the BizNews portfolio, because you do it yourself. You put your own money in there as well, and you watch it much more carefully, and you understand more about investing. There are just so many goodies, but those would be, I guess, those 2. And if you haven't discovered him yet, then Nassim Taleb, anything by Nassim Taleb is an education.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Alec. And have a great holiday season.
It's my pleasure. And you too.
Thank you. I will.